Telugu language is a very, very beautiful language. It is said that Telugu of the Andhra Telangana deshams is best fit for poetry. True to its glory, many compositions from the South Indian music is composed in the Telugu language. There were extremely talented, immensely intelligent and very rich poetry giving poets in the Telugu tradition. But we will just be considering a few of them in this course for our brief understanding of the Telugu language. I am no Telugu speaking person. I am no Malayalam speaking person. But when it comes to appreciation of literature, especially bhakti literature in the regional languages, though we may not be experts at it, though those languages may not be my mother tongue, we should learn to appreciate those languages because bhakti has no language. Whether I am reciting Goswami Tulasidasa's Ramacharita or Potana Bhagavatam's verses in Telugu, I should apply and have the same devotion. So we are going with that in our mind, we are approaching Telugu and its bhakti literature. The first poet whom we are going to consider is a very devout a devotee of Lord Sri Rama. It is said that he lived and performed, composed a lot of his poetry in this village called as Untimetta. It's a beautiful temple again. You must see the temple for the rich Vijayanagara architecture that it has. So he belonged to a village called Bammera. So he was called Bammera Potana, and it is said that he lived between 1450 and 1610. So this is the time period 1510. This is the time period which is given to this particular poet. Amongst his various works, Potana Bhagavatam, his rendering of Bhagavatam in the Telugu language, Telugu Theta they would say. It seems it is as sweet as the honey. It is as sweet as sugar, as sweet as jaggery. Anything that is sweet in the world, you can compare to this Telugu language. So he gave us Potana Bhagavatam and a very brief history, life history of Potana. He is said to have belonged to the Niyogi Brahmana family and he belonged to the Bammera village. He was born to his parents Keshana and Lakkamamba. He was called a Sahaja Kavi because his poetry was so spontaneous, so enjoyable. And he was known to have been a very polite and a very soft spoken, humble person. And at the same time being a great scholar, because being a great scholar and being humble generally never goes hand in hand. But he was a unique combination of humility and scholarliness, scholastic achievements as well. So in one place in Bhagavatam, in Potana Bhagavatam in the Telugu language, he uses the sound. Generally when you compose poetry, when you have poems, it can use the sound elements in it. For example, Vijayendra Tirtha says when Lord Nrsimha came out of the pillar, Bhukhandam Varanandam Paravairaviratam Dambadam Porudampam Dim 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 Didim Bam Dahamapi Dahamais Jumpais Jajumpais Tulyas Dhuma Kai Kumankai. Later he says Jam Jakaram Janu Jashitam Janu Desam Jam Jakaram Hum Hukaram Harita Kahasa Yam Dishevam Vakaram Bum. So look at the sound that is used. Bum Dim Dum. Similarly, the sound pattern, at certain cases it can become prasam, it can become yamakam, but the sound effect is what that creates a drama element in a literary work. Let us see how he uses this in Gajendra Moksha Vrittantam. Kari Diguchu, Makari Sarasiki, Kari Darikini, Makari Diguchu, Kara Kari Berayan, Kariki Makariki Kari, Bara Manuchunu, Atala Kutala, Batula Radula Padan. So look at the way he describes the fight that happened between the majestic elephant Gajendra and that crocodile. Kariki Makariki Kari. How they fought, how the words go here and there. So it's a tongue twister. Thereby, through literature, they did not want to only induce bhakti, but to also induce the communication patterns amongst the commoners, common people like us. Later he describes how the elephant cried for Lord Vishnu's help. So it seems he said, "O Kamalatma, O Varada," the one who grants boons, Kamalatma. Next, "O Pratipaksha Vipaksha Dura." So the one who is beyond the concept of Swapaksham or Vipaksham, either from my side or from the opposition side, or the one who judges between what is right and what is wrong. Kuyo Kaviyogi Vandya Sugunottama, O Sharanagatamara Nokaha, O Munishwara Manohara, O Vipula Prabhava, Rave Karunimpave Talampave Sharanartini Nannum Gavave. Please come and protect this one who has sought asylum at your feet. So in Srimad Bhagavatam of Shuka Brahmam, he says Om Adi Bijaya, Avyaktaya, Sulabhaya, and so on. So he has transformed this even to the commoners, saying Varada, the one who grants boons. So if you are granting boons, oh Lord, come and save me. Now, there is said to have been an incident in Potana's life. When Potana was writing Gajendra Moksha Vrittantam in Srimad Bhagavatam, later presented to the king there, he said when the elephant cried for help, the Lord from Sri Vaikuntham came to his rescue. He sat on Garuda Vahanam and came to his rescue. The king refused to believe. He said, how can the Lord, who is omniscient, omnipresent, sarvagnya, sarvavyapi, why should he come and help? He could have just done it with his power. Why should he personally come? And he kept arguing with Potana. Potana said, see, this is how our acharyas have taught, this is how Shuka Brahmam has said, and I don't believe there is anything false in what they have said. But the king refused to believe. The next day, the king took his son, the prince of that kingdom, on a boat ride with him, with the soldiers, and with Potana, the Kavi, alongside him. At one point in time, all of a sudden, Potana grabbed the prince by his neck and threw him into the lake waters. The king was furious, but he did not know what to do. He jumped into the waters himself, swam a certain distance, rescued the prince and brought him back to the boat. There was nothing. The prince was fine later. But the king said, how dare you throw the prince into the waters of the lake? Have you turned mad, Potana? Potana said, see, I wanted to prove a fact to you. When your son was personally hurt, fell into the waters, to rescue him, though you had soldiers around you, though you had mallas around you, you did not ask them to jump. You jumped yourself. Though you are the king, you jumped yourself. Similarly, when the child whose Gajendra is suffering and he cries for his father's help, that time the Lord came on his Garuda Vahana and rescued. What problem do you have in this? He asked. So when you jump to protect your son who is the prince, it is fine. But when the Lord comes and rescues Gajendra, you refuse to believe. Why so? Then the king rectified his thought and asked for Kshamapanam from Potana, is one legend associated with Potana. So while describing Sri Vaikuntham, see, when the elephant is crying for help, he is trying to be very specific who should come and help. He says Adi Bijaya. So when he says cause, he doesn't say any cause, he says the first cause. The one who is the first cause of this entire universe. So Lord Shiva, Brahma, Indra and so on, they all backed out. They said, we are not the first cause. Then the moment this Adi Bijaya reached the ears of the Lord in Sri Vaikuntham, from the Sri Vaikuntham, the Lord had to come in Garuda Vahana and rescue Gajendra. But how is Sri Vaikuntham? See, people who have gone there wouldn't come back and say, this is how Sri Vaikuntham is. It has got 300 rooms, 400 pathways. They would not come and say, we are speaking about Sri Vaikuntham here, but we have never seen it. So how do we know? How do we describe? So this composition in Potana Bhagavatam, where the elephant is describing Vaikuntham, begins with the first line. Ala Vaikuntha Purambulo, Nagarilo, in that huge province of Sri Vaikuntham with its capital, that city of Vaikuntham, he begins. Then later Potana did not know how to write, what to write. How will he describe Vaikuntham? With this confusion, he went to meditate by the river waters. After a few hours after meditation, he comes back, and to his surprise, in the manuscript, somebody else had committed the remaining 3 lines. He calls his daughter and asks, who had come and who had written? The girl says, you had come some time back and you wrote right. That is when he realizes the Lord had come in his form to complete the verse, because he did not know how to describe Vaikuntham. Only the one who is Vaikuntha Natha himself can come and write. So the verse goes like this. Ala Vaikuntha Purambulo Nagarilo na Moola Saudambuda Saudambudapala Mandara Vanantaramrita Saraf Prantendu Kantopalotpala Paryanka Ramavinodini Yagu Napanna Prasanundu Napanna Prasannundu Vihwala Nagendramu Pahi Pahi Yana Guyalinchi Samrambhiyai. So, Ala Vaikuntha Purambulo, that in that Vaikuntham, Nagarilo, Na Moola Saudambudapala Mandara Vanantaramrita. So, there are Mandara trees, there are beautiful creepers, there are beautiful forests and ponds. Of course, Upanishad says there is Airamadam, Somasadanam and so on. So, Prantendu Kantopalotpala Paryanka Ramavinodini, lotus-eyed, lily-eyed, Sri Devi, Bhudevi, Neela Devi on all sides, Ramavinodini Yagu, Napanna Prasannundu. So the Lord who accepts the services given by all the Devis, Vihwala Nagendramu, Pahi Pahi Yanam. At that point in time, while he was enjoying the pleasures, this distressed elephant out of pain was saying, Pahi Pahi, who? Gajendra, Nagendramu, Pahi Pahi Yanam Guyalinchi Samrambhiyai. So at that point in time, the Lord was disturbed and he came and rescued Nagendra. That is, Nagendra, Gajendra is all the same. The king of all elephants, says Potana in this Bhagavatam. Move to another interesting poet. He was just not a poet. He was a great Kshatriya king. His name was Krishnadevaraya. Krishnadevaraya of the Vijayanagara Empire is said to have ruled between 1509 and 1529, roughly 20-21 years he ruled. And the impact he created was the entire southern region was so very well protected that he was called by various names. He was called Kannadarajya Rāmāyana, the one who celebrated in the Kannada Rajya. Andhra Bhoja, he was like the valorous Bhoja king for the Andhra kingdom. Gau Brahmana Pratipalaka, he was the one who was said to have protected the value understanding and value adhering Brahmanas and Pashus. Muru Rayara Ganda, he was the king of 3 subservient kings under him. So they were kingdoms subservient to him. He was the Muru Rayara Ganda. Now, at that point in time, it was not a very conducive political situation as well. There were Bahamanis, there were Sultans of Bijapur, Golconda and above. So he had to keep his region very, very intact. As much he was a great warrior, a great Kshatriya, the protector of the distressed, the commoners, he was also a great poet. So it is very tough to come across poetry, the height of poetry, alongside the height of administration. Krishnadevaraya was a unique combination. So in his court, besides him, there were great poets, Ashtadiggajas. So Tenali Rama was a great poet, he gave many works. So there were many poets associated with Vijayanagara Empire during Krishnadevaraya's tradition. It is said that once Krishnadevaraya went along with his army to a place in Odisha to fight. On their way in the night, they had to halt at a place called Kakulandra Vishnu temple. So in that Kakulandra Vishnu temple, the Lord is said to have appeared in the dream of Krishnadevaraya. You may ask, how will you know, sir? Krishnadevaraya himself mentions that I saw that Lord who is as dark hued as the rain bearing clouds with Shankham and Chakram, wearing Tulasi Mala, Spatika Mala, Salagrama Mala, coming and standing in front of me and telling me that with your knowledge, with your intellect, why don't you come up with a beautiful piece of literature? And that is when asked which language, like how Sanskritam is regarded as the mother to most Indian languages, you may want to compose in one of the best languages in the region called as Telugu. So he composes in this language Telugu. There is a saying in Telugu, I hope I get my Telugu right. Janani Samskritambu Sakala Bhashalakunu. So like how for most Indian languages, Sanskritam is the mother. Desha Bhashalandu Andu Telugu Lessa. Amongst the regional languages spoken, Telugu language is the best. Jagati Tallikai Saubhagya Sampada Michuta Adu Bidda Melu Kade. So, if the mother Sanskritam is so celebrated, the saying says, then her child, which is Telugu, will be more beautiful. More than the mother, the daughters will be beautiful, right? If you have got a beautiful mother, the daughter will be even more beautiful than the mother. So if Sanskritam is celebrated so much, I think we should celebrate Telugu more because she is the daughter to Sanskritam, she is more beautiful. So this is the attachment that Telugu people have for their language. Like how Tamil people say, Tamilukkum Amudu endru payar. The other name for Tamil is honey, it seems, Amritam, it seems. Malayalam is such a beautiful language. When you hear the Kirtanas in Malayalam and especially Tunjattu Ramanuja Ezhuthachan's Adhyatma Rāmāyanam, you will just fall in love with that language. Should I say about Kannada? Kasturi Kannada. And now Telugu Teta. It is so sweet. So this particular saying that amongst the regional languages, Desha Bhashalandaku Telugu Lessa comes from Amukta Malyada. So, while this king had this dream, the Lord said you should come with a piece of literature, come up with a piece of literature, compose. So, what should be the subject, what should be the Vishayam for this literature, the king asked. So, while the Lord showcased him, the king thought probably I should write about the Lord, his various incarnations. The Lord said, no, I am bored of listening to me, about my glory. I want to listen about the glory about my dearest devotee, who happens to be my wife. Krishnadevaraya was wondering who could that be. None but Andal. Remember, Andal belonged to the Sangam era. She spoke in Sangat Tamil. She belonged to the Madurai region, Tamil region. But this king composed a work called as Amukta Malyada. Who is Andal? Andal is said to be the incarnation of Sakshat Bhumi Devi. Sri Vishnu Chitta Kulanandana Kalpavallim Sri Rangaraja Harichandana Yoga Drishyam Sakshat Kshamam. She is the very incarnation of Bhumi Devi, or at times she can even be thought as Sri Devi. Kamalaya Kamalamivanyam. So she could be even Kamala, who is Sri Devi. So that Andal grew up as the adopted daughter of Vishnu Chitta called Periyalvar in a small town called as Srivilliputturu in Tamil Nadu. She developed such intense love for Lord Krishna, like how Meera in the north of India developed intense love for Krishna. She too developed intense love for Krishna. And every day while her father used to keep the garlands, the flowers together strung as a garland meant for the deity in the local temple, in her father's absence, she would adorn herself with that mala, look at her beauty in the mirror or probably in the waters of the well and keep it back in the same position. The father wouldn't notice. One day the father noticed his daughter doing this and felt very ashamed, embarrassed that every day he was actually presenting that flower garland to the Lord which was previously worn by his daughter. He said, you should not have committed this act, Andal, Goda. She is called Goda Devi in Sanskritam. So he rebuked her and he felt very bad about this act. Later in his dream the Lord appears and says, from today onwards, don't think that you can offer me fresh garlands. I am in love with the garlands which your daughter has worn and presented to me. So please give me those garlands which your daughter wears and then gives. So look at the amount of Saushiliam, Saulabhyam, the accessibility the Lord showcased towards his devotees. So in Tamil, she is called Shudik Kodutta Nachiyar, the one who gave the flower garlands worn by her first to the Lord. That name, when translated to Sanskritam or the Telugu language, becomes Amukta Malyada. That mala which was worn by her, which is priceless in nature, whose worth can never be determined, was given to the Lord. Amukta Malyada. So Krishnadevaraya, the administrator cum poet, came up with this beautiful work called as Amukta Malyada. So this Amukta Malyada has the entire life history of Andal combined with her father Vishnu Chitta, Periyalvar's victory over the other philosophers and poets in the Pandyan kingdom of Madurai, how his father was given lot of gifts and treasures by the Pandyan king, was allowed to travel on the royal elephant, how his father sang glories of the Lord who appeared in Garuda Vahana. Later he came and nurtured and brought Andal up, filled her with devotion, gave her a lot of Krishna bhakti, and later how he brings his daughter to the sanctum sanctorum of Srirangam and gets her married to the Lord of Srirangam. So this entire story has been described in chaste Telugu language. It is a lot Sanskritized Telugu, a lot of Sanskritam that has been interspersed in Telugu, one of the richest pieces of literature in the Telugu language. Now let us go to another great poet, devotee, called as Bhadrachala Ramadasu. He is said to have lived between 1620 and 1680 AD. At that point in time, that dynasty which was very, very dominant in the Golconda region, the current Bhagyanagar or Hyderabad region, was the Qutub Shahi dynasty. So the 8th ruler in this dynasty was Abu Hasan Qutub Shah. He was also called Tana Shah, and this name was given to him by a Sufi saint called as Hazrat Sayyid Shah Raziuddin, who was also called Hazrat Shah Raju Kattal. So this king called as Tana Shah did not have good relations, though belonging to the same religion of Islam, did not have good relations with Sikandar Adil Shah, the rule of Bijapur, and the Aurangzeb of the Mughal dynasty. So he wanted trusted, reliable people who can help him in his administration. So he brought in two people called Madanna and Akkanna. And the brothers served the king in the administration, especially in the financial services. So these two brothers wanted to find a job for one of their relatives. His name was Kancharala Goppanna, and this Goppanna belonged to a village called Nelakondapalli, and these ministers brought Goppanna and recommended him for the position of collecting revenues, taxes from the commoners. So like how we have tax system these days, in those days also people used to pay taxes. So the revenue officer, the tax officer who was then collecting, had misappropriated a lot of funds and he was expelled from his post. To that post Goppanna came, and he would go village after village collecting revenues respectfully from the people. And looking at his demeanor, people used to give away the taxes even without any reminders or warnings. It did so happen that while he went to a village called Bhadra, which had a mountain called Bhadragiri, he was collecting money from the commoners there. That time he saw a very old woman who was unable to walk but carrying a huge pot of water walking up the rocky boulders of Bhadragiri. So he halted the revenue tax collection, ordered his soldiers to wait, and he followed the old lady, and there he saw atop the hill was a temporary setup, and in that, under the shelter of that setup, was a beautiful Divyamangala Vigraham of Lord Rama, on whose lap was seated Sita, and by the side was Lakshmana. So he asked that lady, what are these idols? She explained Sita, Rama and Lakshmana, and she said this has been handed over for years together by a rishi called a Bhadra Rishi, and that is how the hill got its name. And she requested, since you are in a very good job, why don't you construct a small temple for my Lord Rama? And captivated by the beauty, that very instant, Goppanna thought that he should construct a temple. But how could he construct a temple? There are two versions. One version says Goppanna used the tax money, revenue money, to construct the temple, and so he could not give that money to the Shah, Tana Shah, and Tana Shah got angry and put him into the prison. So this is one version, and this is the version that is very popular. The other version, which is less popular but which is more probable, is the first tax collector who was expelled from his job had misappropriated the funds. So Kancharla Goppanna, while he had been collecting money from the people, commoners, he would also have a separate box for the villagers or the commoners to put their donation which they had volunteered to give for the temple. So tax collection was kept separate and donation was kept separate. So what happened was, money that collected in the donation box was used for construction of the temple. Since Goppanna was concentrating on and supervising the temple construction, he could not personally go and hand over the tax revenues collected to Tanasha. While the expelled financial revenue officer volunteered to take the money, Goppanna was all the more happy and collected the tax revenue money and gave it to that expelled officer and said, you go and give it to Tanasha. This person did not go. So that money went away. This money that was collected for tax was taken away by that expelled officer. Tanasha, since he did not receive the money, and on the other hand he saw that the temple was constructed, misconstrued and thought that Goppanna was using the tax revenues to construct the temple. So he put him into the prison in Golconda fort. And for years together, Goppanna, Bhadrachala Ramadasu, whom we call, had to bear all the physical abuse that the soldiers had meted out to him. At one point in time, when he was unable to bear the pain, he sang 100 plus verses called Dasharathi Shatakamu in the Telugu language on Lord Rama and requested Rama to intervene. So he describes in one of the verses here, Bandhana Bhimudu Artajana Bandhavudu Ujjvala Banatona Kodanda Kala Prachanda Bhujatandava Kirtikin Ramamurtikin Rendavasati Deivamika Ledanuchu Gadagatti Bherika Danda Dadanda Danda Ninadambu Lajadambu Ninda Matta Vedandamu Nekkisatidani Bhadragiri Dasharathi Karunapayonidhi. So he calls Rama Dasharathi, the son of Dasharatha, Karunapayonidhi, the one who is the ocean of limitless mercy. So how would Rama come if he had to wage a war? He would come with that Kodanda. So he says, Kodanda Kala Prachanda Bhujatandava. So the way he takes that arrow from his quiver of arrows, the way he fits that arrow in his Kodandam, the way he executes it, the way he handles his enemies in the war. Rama, I have worshipped you. I have built a temple for you. Why don't you come and intervene? Why don't you say that I did not steal? Rama, why don't you intervene? So this is how Dasharathi Shatakamu goes. People who are extremely converse and proficient in the Telugu language will appreciate Telugu poetry better. I have tried my level best to understand why is Rama not coming and helping me? Then he wonders that he has not approached his mother Sita. Had he approached his mother Sita, Sita would have intervened and coaxed Rama to come and help. That is when he says, Nannu brovamani cheppave, Sitamma talli, Nannu brovamani cheppave. Mata, please forgive if I have committed any sins in the past, but you tell me what mistake have I committed, Mata? Nannu brovamani cheppu nari shiromani. Aren't you regarded as the best, the jewel, the crest jewel amongst the women community? Mata, you are my mother. You have to intervene on my behalf and please tell to Lord Rama to come and protect me. Many years after requesting Sita Devi, it is said that two men, common men, called Ramoji and Lakshmanoji, they came and knocked at the doors of Tanasha. Tanasha, who had already slept that night, asked the soldiers to go and open. That is when these two men stand, Ramoji, Lakshmanoji. Tanasha asked, why have you come? So these two men said, we are distant relatives of Kancharla Goppanna called Bhadrachala Ramadasu, who is now languishing in the jail of Golconda fort. We understand that he had loaned some amount. The king said, no, he had not loaned, he had stolen. Whichever is the case, that money needs to come to you. How much is it? Tanasha said, 6 lakh gold coins. Well, we have brought so many gold coins now. Take all these gold coins, you may count and relieve Kancharla Goppanna. Tanasha asked his soldiers to count. Everything was in the right order. He said, okay, I will relieve you. But then these two men said, tomorrow if you don't relieve and say, I have not received money, what can I do? So what should I do? Asked Tanasha. Why don't you write in our Angavastram? We have got one vastram atop us. In our Angavastram, you sign that you have collected 6 lakh gold coins from Ramoji, Lakshmanoji, and thereby let this be the releasing order for Kancharla Goppanna or Bhadrachala Ramadasu. Tanasha wanted to sign, but how will he sign? He doesn't have ink. But he always had the habit, whenever he was awake, he will keep chewing betel leaf. So he threw that betel leaf, whatever he had chewed, into a cup, took that red paste and signed Tanasha. The next morning, this release order had gone to Golconda Fort, and Kancharla Goppanna was asked to come out. Kancharla Goppanna was wondering, how did Tanasha leave? Then he understood some two people called Ramoji and Lakshmanoji had come to release him from the jail. He wondered, he said, I don't have relatives called Ramoji, Lakshmanoji. And he went all the way to Bhadragiri temple, and there atop Rama's Moolamurti was that Angavastram with Tanasha, thereby telling that the Lord himself came along with Lakshmana as Ramoji and Lakshmanoji and released Kancharla Goppanna. So this Bhadrachala Ramadasu is very important in the Telugu literature because he has given Dasharati Shatakamu and beautiful Telugu language based Kirtanas which are sung very, very commonly by the Bhaktas of the Telugu tradition. So be it Kancharla Goppanna, Krishnadevaraya or Potana in the Telugu language, be it Tunjattu Ramanuja Eluttachan or Poondanam of the Malayalam language, be it Narahari of the Thoravai Rāmāyana or Basavanna of the Vachanas in the Kannada language, be it Kamban, the 63 Nayanmars, the 12 Alvars, Thiruvalluvar or Ilangovadigal of the Tamil tradition. All of them have given such rich literature, and we don't have to create new pieces of literature now. We are all just recipients. If we just read that literature, we will understand how beautiful that language is. So in this very limited time, in this particular subject where we thought we can appreciate literature in the regional languages, we have also presented a few singing, dancing, movie videos relevant to the topic. Thanks to the contributors in the open source YouTube channel, and let us understand the essence of such rich literature by in-depth study that we can take up as our own topic of research in the coming years.